There are no sirens, no bombs, no marching soldier, just you, sitting in a room. And yet, your spirit feels bruised. Your body is tired. Your mind keeps looping, like it just survived something. But nothing happened, right? Wrong. You've been in a war since the moment you open your eyes. And the most dangerous thing about it, you still don't know the battlefield. Because this war isn't outside of you. It's through you. Every second, every breath, you are either building yourself or betraying yourself. And the scariest part is this. Most people don't even know they're fighting. They think it's burnout. They think it's stress. They think it's the job, the bills, the timing, the market. But it's not. It's a voice. Your voice, twisted, rewired, repeating someone else's doubt inside your own head. It says, maybe later. It's probably too late. What if I'm not ready? What if I fail? That voice is not you. It's your oldest enemy wearing your face. And every time you obey it, you lose a little more ground, a little more clarity, a little more of the life that could have been yours. But here's the truth. The real battle is not about winning. It's about waking up. Because until you see the battlefield, you will keep bleeding in silence. You wake up, no one's attacking you. But something's already pressing down on your chest. The weight of things unfinished, unspoken, unlived. You move through your morning like a ghost in your own life. Brush teeth, check phone, numb scroll. Forget why you picked it up in the first place. The day hasn't even begun, and you're already behind. But behind what? Behind yourself. Because there's something inside you that doesn't want to be seen. And it's not failure. It's your potential. Let me explain. There's a reason your biggest dreams feel exhausting before they even begin. There's a reason every time you say, this is the year, something sabotages you within a month. There's a reason why you delay the call, skip the habit, close the laptop early, and don't know why. It's not laziness. It's war. Not the kind with guns. The kind with thoughts. You are being hunted by a part of you that looks innocent. It sounds like reason. It acts like logic. But it's rooted in fear. Napoleon Hill called it the devil. Not the fire and brimstone one. The subtle one. The one that whispers, don't try too hard. The one that applauds comfort. The one that tells you, you're doing enough. Even when your soul knows better, it doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to delay you, to make sure your power never wakes up fully. Because once it does, everything else falls away. See, most people don't get defeated by other people. They get defeated by the enemy with no face, the one inside. The one that tells you stories that sound true but aren't. You're not qualified. You're too late. You're just being realistic. No, you're being manipulated, and it's working. The invisible enemy knows this. If it can keep you questioning yourself, it never has to stop you directly. Because you'll stop yourself over and over. With just enough logic to not feel the pain of it. With just enough comfort to survive, but never become. Let that sink in. You've been trained to stay in place. And call it stability. But stability without vision is stagnation. And stagnation is death in disguise. This is how the enemy wins. Not with a sword, but with drift. Drift is the silent sedative of your purpose. It feels like, I'll start tomorrow. I need more time. I'm waiting for the sign. Drift doesn't hurt. That's why it's dangerous. You drift through years and only realize what happened when it's too late to turn around. So let's make it clear. There is an enemy. It is not your parents. It is not your job. It is not the algorithm. It is not your past. It is the part of you that obeys the voice that wants you small. And here's what no one told you. That voice isn't you. It's a ghost, a leftover pattern, an echo of someone else's fear you adopted before you had the power to choose. Now you do. So listen carefully. That voice that sounds like realism, question it. That excuse that feels noble, strip it down. That doubt that calls itself protection, test it. Because underneath all of it is you, the you that knows, the you that remembers, the you that was never meant to shrink to fit this world. But don't rush to positive thinking. This is not about affirmations. This is about recognition. You are not being lazy. You are being attacked, silently, internally, repeatedly. And the first weapon is to call the enemy by name. Because once you name it, you can stop mistaking it for truth. So I ask you this. What if the only thing stopping you is the part of you you've never questioned? Read that again. And next time you feel that tightness in your chest, don't scroll. Don't numb it. Don't override it. Face it. Listen to it. Not to obey it, but to expose it. Because once you see it, you'll realize the enemy has your voice. It's not loud, not cinematic, not Instagram worthy. It's just this. You see it, the thought, the pattern, the lie. And for the first time, instead of being inside it, you're watching it. That is the beginning of power. Because the greatest weapon in any war is not rage, it's awareness. Awareness slices through illusion like a blade through fog. It doesn't fight the darkness. It simply turns on the light. But let me warn you, awareness hurts. Because when you become aware, you can no longer pretend. You can no longer blame your childhood, your ex, your boss, the algorithm, the economy. You can no longer point outward because you finally see it was always inward. The war was never about what they did. It was about what you believed after they did it. And once you become aware, a new identity starts to form. One that watches, one that questions, one that refuses to drift. Hill said, every man is what he is because of the dominating thoughts which he permits to occupy his mind. Permits, not receives. Not inherits, permits, which means you're not a victim of thought. You're the gatekeeper. But most people, they've handed the gate keys to fear. Every thought that comes in, they believe it. Every doubt that whispers, they obey it. Every weakness, they protect it, defend it, even call it personality. But when you raise the sword of awareness, you start asking, wait, who gave me this thought? Is this mine, or did I inherit it? Does this belief serve me or sabotage me? Visualize this. You're standing in front of a mirror, not the one in your bathroom, a deeper one. This mirror doesn't show your reflection. It shows your programming. And in it, you see the lines. I'm not enough. People like me don't succeed. If I try, I'll lose everything. I need their approval. And behind every line, a moment, a face, a memory, a scar. This is the mirror most people never look into because it demands change. It demands accountability. It demands evolution. But here's the truth. You looked away from the mirror too soon. That's why the patterns repeated. That's why the triggers stayed. That's why the breakthrough never came. It wasn't the strategy. It wasn't the timing. It wasn't the tools. It was the lack of internal clarity. Because when you're unaware, you chase shadows. You fight symptoms. You run in circles, fixing the effect while ignoring the cause. And the cause was always within. Awareness changes everything because it makes choice possible. When you're unaware, you react. When you're aware, you decide. That's the difference between the lower self and the higher self. The lower self reacts. It's survival. It's blame. It's defense. The higher self chooses. It doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be present. Present enough to see the pattern. Present enough to pause. Present enough to say, no, not this time. That's awareness. That's the sword. And once you raise it, even once, you can never go back to sleep fully. So I'll ask you this. Are you making decisions? Or are they being made through your fear? There's a difference. Your habits, your tone, your relationships, your business, your goals. Are they aligned with your future self? Or are they coping mechanisms for your past? Think carefully, because the path is not changed by action alone. It's changed by awareness followed by aligned action. So breathe. This is not about blame. This is about beginning. You are not broken. You are simply waking up. And waking up hurts before it heals. But if you're brave enough to keep looking, you'll find something beyond the fear. You'll find you, not the scared version, not the obedient, not the masked version. You, aware, present, dangerous to anything that once controlled you. And once you meet that version, you'll realize the real mirror never lied. You just weren't ready to see. It didn't start with failure. It started with silence. The kind of silence that slips into a child's eyes when their truth is dismissed. The moment they ask a big question, and the room goes cold. Or worse, the answer comes sharp, shame-wrapped, final. Don't talk like that. That's just the way it is. Be realistic. And without knowing it, a fire gets covered. Not extinguished, just buried. And in its place, something subtle starts to grow. Drift. Napoleon Hill described it as the devil's most powerful weapon. Not violence, not addiction. Indifferent. A life lived by suggestion, not decision. A mind guided by repetition, not vision. A soul lulled to sleep with comfort, tradition, and the illusion of safety. Drift is not loud. It's not dramatic. It's smooth, polite, reasonable. That's what makes it fatal. It tells you you're doing fine. No need to rush. Everyone else is in the same boat. But you're not here to be in the boat. You're here to build the ocean. Look closely. You weren't born to drift. You were trained to. From school systems that reward obedience over originality, to workplaces that value consistency more than creativity, to families that confuse fear with love. You were shaped to fit the mold, not break it. You were rewarded for sitting still, staying quiet, coloring inside lines you never drew. And now, you wonder why boldness feels unnatural. You wonder why vision feels fake. You wonder why you sabotage success right before it arrives. It's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. Because once you see the program, you can no longer blame the machine. You must rewrite the code. Let me take you back. Remember the first time you spoke your truth and felt wrong for it? The first time you were laughed at for your passion? The first time you dimmed your light because it made others squint? That moment didn't just hurt, it planted drift. And that drift grew roots. Now it shows up like, I don't want to outshine people. I'll wait until it's perfect. I'm not sure I'm the type. But here's what they never told you. Drift doesn't just cost you goals, it costs you identity. Because every time you abandon your fire, you reinforce the false self, the edited self, the acceptable version, the version they can tolerate. But who's living your life, them or you? Drift is not passive. It is designed by systems, by conditioning, by fear passed down like family heirloom. And every time you obey it, you dig the groove deeper. But you can step out. You must step out. Because the alternative is this. A decade from now, you wake up and you don't recognize your own voice. You don't remember your own dreams. You've built a life that fits you perfectly but feels wrong. And that ache you feel in your chest, that quiet restlessness, that's not failure. That's your higher self banging on the inside of the coffin. So I'll ask you now, when did you first stop trusting your own voice? Don't answer quickly. Sit with it. Trace it. Maybe it was a teacher who called you too much. Maybe it was a friend who laughed at your ambition. Maybe it was a parent who said, just be grateful. Whatever it wasn't the truth. It was the trap, and you've been in it long enough. It's time to cut the rope, to shake the spell, to declare right now, I will not drift another day. From this moment on, you choose. You think deliberately. You act with fire. You speak from the core. Because drift ends where decision begins. And no, it won't be easy, but ease was never the goal. Truth is, and the truth is this, they didn't kill your power. They trained you to bury it, but it's still there, alive, waiting, burning. So go dig, go remember, go rise. There are two versions of you. One remembers, the other designs. One is built from scars, survival, and the voices that once defined you. The other is built from vision, decision, and the version of you that refuses to settle. And between them, there's war. Not a war of noise, a war of silence. Every choice, every thought, every hesitation is a battleground. You feel it when you're about to speak your truth, and you flinch. You feel it when you're on the edge of momentum and pull back. You feel it when you know what to do and still don't move. It's not just hesitation, it's identity warfare, because identity isn't fixed. It's sculpted. You're not discovering who you are. You're deciding who you become. Let that land. Napoleon Hill didn't say, be who you are. He said, you are the master of your fate, the captain of your soul. That means this. Identity is not inherited. It is authored. And if you don't write it, someone else will. See, the remembered self is built from default. It runs on emotion, history, reaction. But the designed self, it runs on clarity, conviction, creation. And every time you hesitate, every time you play small, every time you break a promise to yourself, the remembered self gets stronger. But every time you act with alignment, not motivation, but alignment, you chip away at the old, you sculpt the new. Visualize this. You're standing in an ancient temple, your own mind. Two statues face each other. One is carved from fear, smooth and aged from years of use. The other, still rough, half-formed, but powerful, waiting for your hand to shape it. Every decision is a chisel, every action a strike. And every time you choose truth over comfort, You are building the self you were meant to become. But beware. The remembered self doesn't go quietly. It speaks in familiar voices. It says, "That's not like you. You've changed. Don't get ahead of yourself." Of course you've changed. That's the point. And no, you're not getting ahead of yourself. You're finally catching up to the version that's been waiting for you all along. So ask yourself, who are you becoming by default? Be honest. Because default is not neutral. It's a slow agreement to mediocrity. And mediocrity is not lack of talent. It's lack of identity design. If you keep showing up as the version they trained, you'll keep building a life you secretly resent. But if you choose deliberately, ruthlessly to show up as your future self even before it feels real, you begin to shift timelines. You collapse the distance between who you are and who you could be. And that's when things change. You don't need motivation. You need identity level clarity. You need to wake up and say, "This is who I am now. This is how I think. This is what I do. This is where I'm going, and nothing inside me is allowed to argue anymore." That's not arrogance. That's alignment. And no, not everyone will understand, but they're not supposed to. Because this war isn't about applause. It's about internal peace. You're not here to make the remembered self comfortable. You're here to crown the designed self, the sculptor, the warrior, the architect of destiny. So choose. Because the fight was never out there. The fight was always in the mirror. Somewhere deep in you, there is a flame that never went out. Not even when you gave up. Not even when you betrayed your calling. Not even when you silenced your own soul to survive the noise of this world. It burned, quietly, under the ashes of conditioning, beneath the rubble of regret. Waiting. You didn't need to light it. It was never extinguished. You only needed to return. The higher self is not a fantasy. It is not a persona. It is not some best version you chase like a goal. It is the most ancient version of you, the one that existed before the fear, before the lies, before the mask. It is not who you might become. It's who you already are when the noise goes silent. But to live from that self, you must burn, not in pain, in power. You must be willing to set fire to who you were trained to be, to clear the space for who you were coded to become. That's why it hurts. That's why growth feels like grief. Because you are shedding an identity that once protected you, but now imprisons you. Hill said it clearly. Desire backed by faith knows no such word as impossible. But faith is not belief. Faith is decision without evidence. It's choosing the future before it feels safe. It's acting from the higher self, while the lower self screams for proof. Visualize it. A ruin long abandoned. Stone pillars cracked, vines overtaking the edges. But in the center, a small, steady flame, untouched by time. You step inside. Dust rise, shadows move. And the fire doesn't ask you to worship it. It asks you to carry it. This is your task, to carry that fire into every room, every deal, every morning, every hard conversation, every disciplined choice that no one claps for. Not because it feels easy, but because it feels true. But you cannot carry that fire while carrying your old story. The story that says, "I've always been this way. I'm not like them." It's too late. Burn it. Burn the need to be understood. Burn the apology in your voice. Burn the delay you disguised as strategy. Because the fire doesn't wait. It doesn't beg. It doesn't explain itself to fear. It simply is. And it's speaking now, not in words, but in resonance. That tug in your chest, that knowing behind your eyes, that moment of stillness that feels like home, that's the fire. That's you. Your higher self has been whispering all along, "I was never gone." You just stopped listening. But now, you're listening again. And so I ask you this. If the higher version of you gave you one command today, what would it be? Don't guess. Listen. It won't say, "Be impressive." It will say, "Be aligned." It won't say, "Be like." It will say, "Be unshakable." It won't say, "Be perfect." It will say, "Be exact." That's the difference. The higher self doesn't scream. It speaks once and expects obedience. Because once you know, once you feel the truth, the only real betrayal is hesitation. So carry the flame. Let it turn your routine into ritual. Let it infuse your silence with presence. Let it burn through everything that once kept you small. And when doubt rises again, because it will, don't fight it. Just stand taller, straighter. Still, there won't be firework. No camera crew, no confetti, no slow motion montage to announce your arrival. Just a quiet morning. where the air feels different, where your breath is deeper, where the weight that haunted your chest is gone. This is what victory really looks like. Not celebration, but clarity. You'll walk past a mirror you used to avoid, and this time, you won't flinch. You'll see the same eyes, the same skin, but something has shifted. There's presence where there used to be noise. There's stillness where there used to be war. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Because the battlefield was never your circumstances. It was your identity. And you didn't escape it. You faced it. You bled through it. You stood inside the fire and came out forged, not burned. No one may notice. And that's okay, because this wasn't for them. This was between you and the part of you that refused to die. The future you, the architect, the inner warrior, the one who's always been 5 steps ahead, calling you forward through every failure, every fall, every silence. And now you hear them clearly. They're not shouting. They're nodding. You made it, they say, not to a destination, but to yourself. And the irony is, nothing around you may look different yet, but everything within you has changed. And because of that, everything else will. Not all at once, not overnight, but inevitably, unstoppably. You'll walk into rooms with a different spine. You'll speak with fewer words, but deeper weight. You'll keep promises no one hears, and that's where your legacy will begin. Not in applause, in alignment. Because the greatest power isn't improving the world wrong. It's improving your higher self right. And so I ask you, one last time, if you were no longer afraid, how would you live today? Not someday, not once you're ready. Today, you already know the answer. And now, you're finally strong enough to obey it. The war is within, so is the throne. Take your seat. You've carried the code all along. Now you have the key, use it.